Welcome to every one of you. So it's good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We currently have more than 200 participants from 30 countries joining us. So this is really a great success and shows the interest that there is around into effective cold and flu therapies and also firsthand information from experts all around the globe. So for me, it's really a great pleasure to welcome you to this scientific webinar on Echinaforce. This is actually hosted by A.Vogel, as you can see. So my name is Ronald Schoop. I'm head of medical department. I've been working on Echinaforce for more than 23 years now. So actually half of my life I've been spending my time with this Echinacea, with this fascinating plant. And I've been asked to host and to chair this session, and which is actually a great honor for me to do so. This scientific webinar is part of the activities we have on the Echinaforce 70 years celebrities, which have begun in November last year. And what does it mean if a product, a pharmaceutical product, is on the market for 70 years? It's actually good questions that I ask myself. It basically shows that the product must be really, really very good. This at this first stage to conclude. Yeah. I have seen during my professional work many products come and to go. As they come up to the market, they maybe 2 or 3 years, they went away again, were not popular anymore. But Echinaforce just stayed on the market for 70 years, and this is already a very successful story. And it shows how people really rely on effectiveness, how they rely on good safety and high quality. This is very important when it comes to herbal products and also healthcare products in general. But what does it mean, good quality in herbal therapy? I mean, it's not like we have a single substance like paracetamol. You just take 500 milligram, you press it into a pill, and then you sell it and you're fine. When it comes to herbal treatments, we're talking about substances, maybe 100 or 1,000 different substances that might play an action. And we're still struggling to really understand which substance is doing which job. But in herbal therapies, we see effects that the synthetic industry can just dream of. Normally, these effects are broader in its range. They might be a little bit less strong, but they are broader. And this is the principle of phytotherapy. Now, unfortunately, herbal products are poorly regulated. You can essentially produce an Echinacea product. You just grow it in the nowhere without clear quality control, uncontrolled conditions. You can use fertilizer, pesticides. Then you harvest the Echinacea or any herbal plant, you harvest it, you dry it until you lose all active substances. Then you mill it and you put it into capsules and you put a nice packaging, and then it looks almost as Echinaforce, but it contains almost no active principles and no activity. On the other side, you can aim to choose for the best soil. You can grow the Echinacea with great care. You can avoid fertilizers, pesticides. You can make sure that the growing fields or the places where you grow Echinacea is really directly associated to the company. That enables you to transfer the plant in a fresh manner onto the production site. Thereby, you avoid the decomposition of many active substances. Then you can try to standardize the product. I'm sure we will hear more about this, the processes behind. Then you can try to run clinical trials. You can learn more about the effectiveness of your product. And finally, you can try to register your product as a pharmaceutical grade product. And then it has the same level like aspirin or paracetamol. That's what we do, or what we did for Echinaforce. And I'm pretty proud to tell you that Echinaforce in Switzerland or also South Africa is reimbursed by the health insurance because it has this high level of quality. For me as a researcher, maybe I would say the highest proof of quality or quality recognition, I should say, is that other researchers start to work with your product. Currently, we have about 40 to 50 different researchers that are actively investigating Echinaforce. And imagine if you were a researcher, you would never touch an ineffective product because you would simply waste your lifetime working on an ineffective product. Also, you wouldn't touch that product if the quality was variable. If one batch you receive, you show one effect and the next batch shows another effect. And that's the problem with many herbal preparations, that they cannot guarantee a constant level of quality. So I think with Echinaforce, we're really playing in a different league. But quality means also that the company representative is not talking too long on such events. And I'm very happy to hand over the word to our experts today. So these are people that have been working for years with Echinaforce. They can tell us much better what the product is doing and what we can expect from the health side. I have a few announcements regarding the technical aspects of this webinar. So you will see, we will kind of record the whole session. So afterwards, if you're in the mood of listening again, you can do so. We will send you the link. Also, if you have questions, I will kindly ask you to write this in the chat. We have really many attendees, so we probably will not be able to answer all questions, but we will provide you with a frequently asked question document afterwards, so maybe next week. So I hope that no questions will be unanswered. So at this stage, it's my great pleasure to announce the first speaker of this evening. And this is actually Professor Wim van den Berge. He's a leading expert in epigenetics and biochemistry. He made his PhD at the University of Ghent in 1999. He did his postdoctoral work in Montpellier and, as far as I know, Oxford also. He's currently professor at the University of Antwerp and Ghent. So I think Professor van den Berge is really the man to look deeply into the cell, trying to understand how cells react on herbal substances, but not just herbal substances, but also chemical substances. And one of his priority is the epigenetics. You will see this is really a new field we were entering with Echinaforce. This tells us something about the gene activity, how it can be turned on and off by substances. But without going too much in detail, I'm sure, Wim, you can explain this much better than I will do. And the stage is yours for your presentation.
Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar. So I'm happy to present everyone some of our results and our research we have been done over the past years with plant bioactives and Echinacea especially. So we are molecular biologists and identifying bioactives in model organisms or even in clinical intervention studies. So many of you are familiar with respiratory tract infections, and most of us don't like to have a cold. Because if this cold is continuing for a few days, then we suffer from a headache. Sometimes we suffer from fever or coughing or sneezing or sore throat. Many times people, they go to the doctor and say, can you help us? And we want to get rid of this infection complications. Can you prescribe some antibiotics? But what someone has to remember is that about 90% of this respiratory tract infections is caused by viruses, and antibiotics are not really very helpful to kill viruses or to treat virus infections. So that's why we were interested in, so how can we support people with respiratory tract infections to have fast recovery from this infection and not to suffer too long from these complications. So, and for the past 20 years, I have been working with a lot of medicinal plants and plant extracts, and we have been very interested in plant extracts or compounds which are interfering with infection or inflammation and which could have some beneficial effects. So especially we got interested also in plant extracts which give kind of immune support in different ways. So you can have immune support in a preventive way, that you strengthen the antiviral effects so that viruses have more difficulties to get into the host, or once you have an infection, also to help the immune system to clear your body from the virus. So to lower the viral replication and to support a quick recovery. So yeah, we working in the past years, I have been working with many plant extracts, but I got fascinated also by Echinacea because there have been some preliminary data that like taking Echinacea extracts for a few weeks can really reduce a lot of respiratory tract infections. So I was really curious if I can also identify molecular mechanisms or biochemical mechanisms which could help to explain this significant risk reduction of respiratory tract infections. And if you are doing research, what is important is that we work with a standardized preparation, an extract which is well characterized from composition with the bioactive components which are reproducibly present in your extract. So I have been working with ashwagandha extracts, curcumera extracts, but I think there's only few extracts which are very well characterized to very high pharmacological standards. So I started my research with this standardized Echinacea purpurea extract, and our interest was to see so how this can help our immune system, or how this can protect our body from viral infection. So if you're not familiar a lot with immunology from viral infection, we can distinguish a few stages. So yeah, when a virus is, so when our body is exposed to a virus, so then of course it has to enter the body. So first there's like a physical barrier. Our mucosal tissue is like a physical barrier which limits the access of viruses. So when we have respiratory tract infection, the virus somehow gets into our body, and then our body is alerting the viruses, and this will cause like alarm signals. So our body is alerted or is warned that there's a danger in our body, and then our body will start to produce cytokines and chemokines which will trigger a fast immune response. So, and this fast immune response is aiming to destroy the pathogens. It can be viruses, bacteria. So in general, this is not a virus specific response, but it's very effective in killing and infecting viruses and bacteria. And so this is a fast response. And then the third stage, we call this the adaptive immune response, which is different from the innate immune response. So this is much slower. And this is typically response which is contributing to our immune defense by producing antibodies. Also, vaccination strategies are working on the slow response, so it takes quite a while to produce antibodies. So this is really a slow response and is a more virus-specific response. So you can be vaccinated against influenza, but if the virus is changing, maybe you are still not protected. So, and that's why we were interested in, so if Echinacea, if there is preliminary data showing that we can reduce the complications of respiratory tract infections, So we were focusing how Echinacea is helping to protect against viral entry to our body at one level in stage 1. And then in the second stage, we are also looking, so if we have an acute infection and you start to take Echinacea, what could then be the benefits for immune support by this standardized extract? So if we go back to the first stage, so the virus need to enter the host. So we have mucosal tissue, which try to limit the access of viruses. But yeah, during COVID times or when you influenza season, so what you see is that the viruses they somehow they find some receptors at the host cells and they try to get into the body. And you see here on the upper panel, so that a virus entry in our body can start to make some tissue damage. But what the interesting thing is that, for example, if you, in a preventive way, you take Echinacea standardized extract, it looks like the physical barrier is more robust, is more solid. So viruses are less able to stick to these proteins at our host membrane, and they fail to get, so it's more difficult to enter the host and they fail to enter the body. And then you see here the barrier is more intact, so we have less tissue damage. So and so the first physical barrier is strengthened by our Echinacea extract. So this is a very important way how we can protect against virus infections. So it is not limited only to COVID virus. So this has been tested both in vitro studies, in cell model studies, but later on, this has also been validated in clinical trial intervention studies that this Echinacea helps to strengthen the physical barrier for against viruses and different strains of viruses, influenza viruses, herpes virus, adenovirus, coronavirus, and so this is just a list, a first list. So, but I think we can extend this list if we can extend also more experiments. So you see that the Echinacea extract gives a broad protection for many viruses by causing that the virus cannot stick very well to the host cells. And then some, if you have bad luck and people can be infected, sometimes the viruses succeed to get in our host. So and then what happens then is when the virus succeeds to get in the host cells, so then we have a very strong alert of our host, of the immune cell, of the immune response. So we get a key warning which has to activate a whole cascade of reactions in immune cells to fight against this the virus, to eradicate the virus in the infected cells. So our body is making a key alert or a warning signal by cytokines, chemokines, and interferons. And the most important class of immune signals to fight against virus infections are interferons. And in our biochemical studies in the lab, what we found is that if we treat immune cells with Echinacea standardized extract, that we enhance the baseline levels of the interferon alert signal. So it looks like our immune system is alerted or warned, is more prepared to fight against a virus entry. So because of that, it may also help to have a faster immune response to eradicate viruses in people who get a cold infection. So this was a very interesting observation, and if you want to read more details on that, so you can also read this in one of our published papers. So among the various effects of the Echinacea standardized extract, the interferon, the strengthened interferon response is a key element in the molecular mechanism of action of the Echinacea extract. So we also have been contributing in clinical intervention studies, both in a preventive mode of action and in an acute mode of action. So people who got infected by a virus like a COVID virus or influenza, what you see then is, so you have increases in interferon pathways, but you see many cytokines which are regulated by this Echinacea extract. And all these signals, they help our immune system to eradicate the virus. And it's also important that after all these signals help to eradicate the virus, they help also to bring the immune system back in a relaxed mode and prepare it for fighting against a next virus infection. So it helps the resolution of a virus infection to clear our body from the virus and come back to a healthy immune condition. So this was also a very interesting finding. And what was even more interesting is that because of this mechanism of action on the cytokines and the interferon response, we were also able to show that the levels of viral molecules, both in the throat or in the nose, so you can do PCR tests to quantify the amount of virus which is present. So we see that the virus is cleared much faster in people taking the Echinacea treatment, and not only in the throat and the nose. So we even see that, like in blood circulation, that we can. So there's also a new finding that also in blood circulation we can lower circulating amounts of virus. So, and reducing the viral load in the host is also a very important mechanism of action of Echinacea treatment, which allows also the host or our body to have faster recovery. So what you can see here, so because of the lower viral load in the host, also our body is able to be about 5 days earlier free of viruses. And because of that, we suffer also less from respiratory tract infections. So, and this will promote quicker recovery from the virus infection. So rather than 10 days, you feel horrible, maybe you can reduce the horrible time to 5 days, which is also a strong benefit of this Echinacea treatment. And so I would like to round up here. So yeah, there's many interesting things that we are still further investigating. But okay, what is the take-home message from this webinar is that the standardized Echinacea extract is very effective in blocking the physical entry of viruses to our body. So it's also strengthening the immune cells. So by enhancing the interferon response of the baseline interferon response, our immune cells are more ready to fight against virus infections. So we also found that Echinacea extract is reducing the amounts of viral particles and viral RNAs, both in the throat, in the nose, and in the blood, which is also helping altogether that we have a faster recovery from virus infections and that we feel more comfortable in a quicker way. So that's the major conclusions of my story. And then, of course, so I would like to thank also the people who, so many people in the lab in Antwerp, they have been contributing also in doing this biochemical research and the epigenetic research. And for dissecting the effects on the interferon pathway and the cytokines, that we collaborate with the Rega Institute in Leuven, in University of Leuven, with Professor van Weyenberghe, and together we collaborate with many people who were organizing this clinical trial and which helping to analyze many parameters from immunological health. And then I would also like to thank you for listening to this to this webinar, and I'm open to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Professor Vandenberg, for your inspiring talk. It's always great also for me to listen to your explanations because it takes us really into a journey into the cells to really understand what is going on when we take Echinaforce. So thank you very much for this. I think we have learned quite a few things from your presentation. For me, it's essential to take home messages to say, okay, we have really different actions from Echinacea. It's not showing that it's just antiviral. And it also has an effect directly against the virus, which is absolutely important when we think about prevention. But then it looks like even if some viruses survive, they don't have a chance to enter into the body, as you've shown for SARS-CoV-2. I like this picture very much because it clearly shows what happens. And also for me, the damage that the SARS-CoV-2 was producing is completely avoided by taking Echinaforce.
Yes.
And then apparently you have a third level of defense, which is then the immune system by itself. But this combination of these three elements to combat against viruses, this is quite unique for Echinaforce. Or what is your perspective? And also, what I should say, the correlation to the clinical data. This is something I think makes this product really unique. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting. So in general, plant molecules are not working on a single target. We sometimes we say plant compounds are polypharmaceutical because they have a broad spectrum of action or effects. So, and as we have shown in the presentation, it works at different levels. The entry of the virus, it helps to make our immune system ready to fight against viruses. And also important, once you have the infection, it helps for a faster resolution. So this is also important. You should not only activate the immune system, you should also maintain immune homeostasis. So if everything is activated, all the alarm signals are chronically activated, this is not beneficial for our health. So we have also seen this in COVID times, cytokine storm. So they show that interferon is really important for antiviral responses. But if the interferon response is going out of control, we have cytokine storm, and then we also have a lot of damage in patients. But what we see with Echinacea is that it keeps the whole ecosystem from immune system in good shape, that when the most urgent things are done, that then the immune system is coming down and you really support fast resolution of the viral infection. And this is also the second part is as important as the first part to fight. So it's fighting, but also restoring like immune homeostasis. So I think this combinatory effects, I think it's very important. In the mechanism of action.
Interesting. And with this knowledge, I think it would be easier for the physicians not to prescribe antibiotics, because essentially most of them, they know that respiratory tract infections are viral, but they have no antiviral and they have nothing. I mean, they don't know they have. And as I said, I mean, Echinaforce in Switzerland is reimbursed by the healthcare systems. So if they knew this information, it would be much easier for them to do antibiotic stewardship and to reduce antibiotics, I think.
Yeah, I think there's an important conclusion that we should try to avoid to have broad prescriptions of antibiotics which are not of any use. And that's just with this Echinacea extract. You may even avoid many times to do the prescriptions. So I think this is definitely something to take into account for medical doctors, that by doing this, maybe you can avoid useless antibiotic prescriptions, which can also be detrimental, because if you have too wide prescriptions of antibiotics, you may promote resistance, which is also has adverse effects in healthcare. So we do want to avoid that.
Clear. Yeah, interesting. Also, one aspect that maybe we quickly want to pinpoint or go into detail is the broad antiviral effectiveness. You know, sometimes when I hear this winter we had a new subclade of H3N2 of this new influenza virus. Last year it was corona. Interestingly, January last year it was a metapneumovirus. I was not aware that this exists. So viruses come and go, but Echinaforce remains effective. How do you see this broad antiviral activity in the context of these ever-changing pathogens floating around and making people also anxious? People ask me, well, should I take a vaccine now against this new bug? What is it? People are anxious, also.
Well, vaccines are very effective, but the disadvantage of these vaccines is that they are directed against a needle spike epitope on a virus. And if the virus is like a chameleon, it's always trying to avoid, it's changing the structure at the membrane, and then maybe vaccines do not fit very well anymore to this adapted virus, but where Echinacea extract, like plant compounds, they may more work on broad affinity of some molecules of the virus on entry molecules in the mucosa of the host. So, and I think plant compounds have much broader specificity. They are less restricted to a single epitope. So they are more on physicochemical characteristics of interactions of proteins and less restricted to one single needle protein, which is somewhere on the membrane of a virus.
Yeah.
I think this is also important.
Good. Interesting. So thank you at this stage for your interesting elaborations and explanations. We will come back to you after Mercedes Ogal's talk. I think we heard now enough about how Echinaforce works. But now I would like to hand over the microphone to Mercedes Ogal. And I'm actually very happy to have her with us today. She's a highly experienced integrative pediatrician. She's having her clinic in central Switzerland near the lake of Vierwaldstätter See. And she's very familiar with different therapeutic disciplines. So she's really complementary and also including phytotherapy. I think she has now for 5 years focused on palliative medicine in children. She's absolutely passionate helping children and also their parents, I can say. She has her heart with the children, really. And also she was quite involved in our clinical work. She's been involved in the clinical research around the Echinaforce, has co-authored several studies. So it's really a pleasure for me to announce Dr. Ogal, telling us more about the scientific effectiveness of Echinaforce from clinical studies, and of course her personal experience with the product.
Thank you very much, Roland. This was very nice. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to talk tonight or today for you. It depends where you are, about the efficacy, safety, and practical use of Echinaforce for respiratory tract infections for adults and for children. And this is so important for me because the use of antibiotics is so high around the world. And we just talked about this with Wim and Roland before in this webinar. So here in this chart, you see on the right side that the respiratory tract infections, the upper part, it is this one, is the highest use of antibiotics in children at all. These are the lower respiratory tract infections. And if you look at adults, it's nearly similar. These are the upper respiratory tract infections. These are the lower ones. So if you combine both respiratory tract infections, you have the highest use of antibiotics in adults. These are the urinary tract infections, and these are the skin infections. So it would be so important to reduce the use of antibiotics, especially now worldwide, because we have such an increase of the antibiotic resistances. So it's important to find something else. With Echinaforce, we have really now an evidence-based phototherapy on the hand. There are over 30 published studies. And interesting is that we have 20 clinical studies. If you combine everything with all these subjects, we have 295 treatment years, which are clinical researched. There are 4 meta-analyses on Echinacea. We have safety data on 3 billion daily dosages to show that it is safe and efficient. And Echinacea has a low number needed to treat in phytotherapy. It's 4. I would say it's the lowest number to treat we have in phytotherapy, but yeah, it's really, really very low. So what is important if you use Echinacea? It's very important to look which product you have. This is here you see in this picture 43 different Echinacea products, and every product has a different amount of alkylamides in the product. And we all know that alkylamides are highly effective in antiviral and anti-inflammatory treatment of, for example, respiratory tract infections. We need alkylamides. So it's very important that the products we use have a very high amount of the alkylamides. And you get high amounts of alkylamides if you use the whole plant, not only the flower or not only the root. You need the whole plant, and you need a very, very good extraction so that you get this amount. And Echinacea plays in this league, so has the highest amount of alkylamides with a very high anti-inflammatory effect and antiviral effect. So if we go to a pharmacological summary, Wim was showing it before, we have a broad spectrum antiviral, and not only some special viruses, we have it really broad. There are clinical studies that show these significantly, and they show how the viral load in the nasopharynx is reduced. It supports the immune system through interferon. It's epithelial protective. You saw it in these wonderful slides, and it's anti-inflammatory. So prevention with Echinacea means that we have an enhanced antiviral activity and we have an optimal immune support with this plant. Now I want to turn to some studies. I would like to start with the long-term prevention studies of respiratory tract infections in over 700 adults. We did this at the University of Cardiff, and the people took over 4 months without a break, 2,400 milligrams of Echinacea extract daily. And if they had respiratory symptoms, they recorded it, and we made an analysis of the virus of the nasopharyngeal samples. We took with a swab, we took samples of the nasopharyngeal area and analyzed the virus load. And this showed that if you took it all together, that if you don't take Echinacea, so this is important, if you don't take it, you have a much higher risk of getting cold episodes. If you are a very sensitive person, so a person who, for example, gets some more colds in wintertime, so you can have a good prevention with Echinacea. If you don't take it, you have around a 30% higher risk of getting colds. If you are stressed, this PSS means this is perceived stress score. So if you are stressed and the score is over 10, or you have struggles in your life, you are having a higher risk of cold episodes without Echinacea of over 60%. And if you have a lack of sleep, it's quite similar. A lack of sleep means stress for the body. So you need around normally 7 to 8 hours a night. Some people need 9, some need 6, but you need a good amount of sleep. And if you don't have it, you have a higher risk. And to turn it other way around, you can reduce the risk of cold episodes if you take Echinacea. And even more important is it for smokers. And we all know that smoking, they have very sensitive, the mucus in the mouth and in the nose is hypersensitive. And it's open and delicate, and if a virus can attack, the virus has more chances. So for smokers, it's even more important to protect themselves with taking Echinacea, especially Echinaceae. And you can enhance everything if you have a very good compliance. So if you take it regularly, if you would like to make a prevention. But you can also take it if you have an acute episode, and I'll show you this later. Now, I would like to show you a study we did during the COVID-19 pandemic period with 120 adults, and they took the same amount of Echinaceae extract, but we have a control group, and they took it 2 months, then 1 week break, 2 months, 1 week break, and again 1 month. And this break they did because it is written in literature very often that it's better to make a break in between. But you do not need this break. You can take it through the whole winter time. It was just written once or twice in literature, and now it's like in the brain of the people. So there was done a study with this, also to show is there a difference or not. And Echinaceae proved itself. It's very helpful. So you see here that it makes an immense reduction of the respiratory viruses. If you look at this, this is a group with Echinacea. This is a control group. So you see that we have a reduction of around 25% of the respiratory viruses in the people. And if you look especially at the enveloped viruses and influenza A, which we at the moment have so often in Switzerland and in Italy, it makes a reduction of influenza A and all these enveloped viruses of 51%. And if you look at the COVID virus, it made even more reduction of 63%. And this is significant. So it seems to be that Echinaceae has just a special effect on the enveloped viruses like SARS-CoV, like influenza, and things like that. The really heavy one. And these are also the viruses which are very difficult in children and in palliative care. These are the lethal viruses, we say. You have seen this picture before in the presentation of WIM, and I would like to repeat it like an advertisement, but because it's so important. Here in this picture, you see the log change. And log change means that if you have a log change of -1, you have a 90% reduction. If you have a log change of -2, you have a 99% of reduction. So if you now look what Echinaceae is doing, if you do an acute treatment, so if you have a cold and you acute need some support, then if you take Echinacea, you have at day 5, you have a 99% reduction of the viral load in the nasopharynx. And here, after day 10, you have a 99.99% reduction. And if you compare it with a non-treated control group, you see that at day 5, they have nearly no reduction at all of the viral load. And this leads to the conclusion, which you have seen before, that you are, when you take it, when you have an acute episode, you are 8 days earlier virus-free. And with the enveloped viruses, for example, like COVID, you are around 5 days earlier virus-free. So now I would like to show you, as a pediatrician, our long-term prevention study we did in children. And we had around 200 children who took 1,200 milligram Echinaceae junior extract or vitamin C in a low dose for 2 months with a 1 week break, and for again 2 months. And the results are really astonishing. One, if you look at the left, we see that we have in the Echinaceae group a 32.5% reduction of colds and flu. So a lot less colds and flu. And this means a big relief for the parents and families. Then, and that's even more important, we had 67.3 less days with fever and 65% less complications. So also the need of antibiotic prescriptions goes down, and we had 76.3% less antibiotic prescriptions. And this is especially in this vulnerable group of children so important, because antibiotics reduces the wonderful microbiome of the gut and leads perhaps later, if you have not such a good gut system and microbiome, it is the next step are allergies or skin problems or other problems. So it's crucial that you do not prescribe antibiotics in children, or just only prescribe it if it's really not available and really necessary. So with Echinacea Junior, we have really something at the hand to give the children to prevent giving antibiotics. This is an older study, but I would like to show it because of the acute treatment of common cold. The studies before I just showed you because of the prevention effects of Echinacea, but here we see the acute treatment very clearly. And you can see on the slide that of all symptoms we compared Echinacea with an Echinacea concentrate. And you see in the third line that the Echinacea concentrate is really high with 16,800 milligram. And we compared it with the Echinacea purpurea radix. But you see that Echinacea tablets are highly effective and are nearly the same effective like the super high dose of Echinacea concentrate. So if you take it when you have an acute symptom, you can have a relative reduction of all complaints you have during a common cold around 63%. And this is really high. I mean, if you feel so much better after taking it for 1 or 2 days, it's great. So last but not least, I would like to come to the ERA Prima study. This is one of the most important meta-analyses we did with over 30 studies about different Echinacea products with over 5,600 participants. And it was published in 2024 in the really famous Journal of Antibiotics. So if you look at the summary, then also in this big meta-analysis, it came out that Echinacea reduces respiratory tract infections around 32%, and the recurrent infections around 40%. But important is that it makes a respiratory tract infection of 56%, and the reduce of antibiotic prescription around 40%, and then the days of therapy around 71%. And here you have to know that there are really different Echinacea products in this meta-analysis, but also with different products which have, I think so, less amount of alkylamides in it. The antibiotic therapy days are immensely reduced with 71%. So the need of antibiotics can be decreased if you take Echinacea. You can take it for prevention, but you can also take it if for an acute infection. And I think my recommendation is just really take it for acute and for prevention, and look which Echinacea you take. For me, for example, at the moment in a pediatric clinic, I have really some severe ill patients with influenza A. I have one highly critical palliative care patient. He is 17 years old and his weight is 24 kilos. He has an SMA and he's really severe ill. And I give them Echinacea, and I myself, I also take it as soon as the season starts. So thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure for me to talk to you, and now I'm happy to answer all your questions.
So thank you, Dr. A.Vogel, for your inspiring talk too. Very nice to listen to. So looks like Mercedes A.Vogel has taught us that on Echinaforce we really have more than 30 published studies. So I think they're open access journals. You can have, if you have more interested, then you can have a closer read. You can download it from the internet. It's all publicly available. That's really open source. We have 20 clinical studies on more than 2,800 subjects and 295 treatment years, if I correctly remember. So can we say that Echinaforce is kind of the best echinacea product or the best researched echinacea product worldwide? Is this a conclusion that we could say?
Yes, it is a conclusion. It's one of the best researched products in phytotherapy and in echinacea we have worldwide. And this product is now also used in other countries for studies. So, for example, what is interesting, in 2025, a study came out from Vietnam, a meta-analysis, where also Echinaforce is included, and they started to use it for children from the age of 1.
That leads me to a very essential question. We have heard, in Switzerland, Echinaforce is approved from the age of 4. We have an age limit of 4. It's contraindicated from the age below 1, but in between, it's just not recommended. But when you think about, you just mentioned before, thinking about the severity of influenza virus infections, we currently also have respiratory syncytial virus infections, parainfluenza, so many other SARS-CoV-2. These are all enveloped viruses, and we have learned from him that, or from Professor Vandenberg, that Echinaforce especially works with these enveloped viruses. So what is your opinion about lowering the age limit to, let's say, 1 or 2 year old children? Because it looks like the younger the child, the more it benefits.
Yeah, in the pediatricians all over the world are used to use products off-label. You just have to tell it to the parents. That is very important, that it's off-label to give it under the age of 4. And it's important that the child is capable to chew or to suck a pill. And you need to be safe with this child. But if you have a well-developed child which has no psychomotoric delay in then you can give it starting from the age of 1. And the big meta-analysis in Vietnam proves this because of no side effects.
That's another essential part, the safety. Yeah. I think also as far as I know, the Kanchidana work also looked at safety, and it was quite good, safety profile. That's very important, because sometimes we give medications to children which are not at all safe or not in-depth researched for safety.
Correct.
This is very important. Huh?
Yeah, it's very important, and the safety is super high in Echinacea and Echinaforce Junior.
So when I look at the pack shot of Echinaforce in Switzerland, we see that prevention and acute treatment are approved. So both, it's quite an interesting combination, and for children and adults. But in your opinion, where do you think Echinaforce works best?
The children are suffering most from respiratory tract infections. And this is why I think it works so very well. And so I would recommend, it works both. You can use it for children and for adults. But the young children, they have such a high risk. They have so many upper respiratory tract infections, and families are totally stressed. It starts in October and ends in April in Europe. This is our winter season. I think in Australia, it's just the other way around, from April to October. And if you have a young child or you have siblings, 2, 3, 4, then one starts and then the next one is coming. And sometimes they have 10 to 12 infections over the winter time. And if you can break through this and have a good and effective prevention, then you can not only do something good to the child, also for the whole family. And you reduce the social burden, because the parents can sometimes go to work again and not sitting at home, measuring fever and things like that.
This is so true. I mean, you're speaking out of my heart, because I have 2 kids at home, and I think before they were 3 years old, I was just thinking about when can I get them on Echinaforce, And it's also interesting. Maybe one aspect we have to point out is Echinaforce is not just for colds.
Yeah.
We have these more severe infections. You just showed that it works. People or children have less fever days. And then, of course, something which we shouldn't forget, it's about the antibiotics, something we do not always have at the front of our thoughts, or it's not first positioning. But to avoid children to be on antibiotics, it's kind of
it's crucial.
very important that we give children Echinaforce. I mean, it's crucial.
Yeah, absolutely crucial to prevent children from getting antibiotics.
Yeah. It's good to hear that from your words, because when I look at the data, it's quite obvious, but to hear it from a pediatrician, of course, it has even more weight. So thank you very much for your answers to these questions. Now we have still, let's say about 10 minutes to maybe answer some questions from the public. Maybe Wim van den Berg, you can also join us again for this last section. I'm sure that there will be some questions regarding the mode of action. There have been questions regarding interactions with other synthetic medications. So is there something that maybe Mercedes or Gal, can you say something about this potential for interactions?
The most interaction question is coming from the oncology. And I am not an oncologist, but it has not a kind of immune, it don't reduces the immune system, Echinacea. It just modulates the immune system. So when I researched and I looked, you can use it also through oncology therapy. You have no reduction of the immune system or side effects, and it's just an immune modulatory. But perhaps, Wim, you have another option, but I think you can combine it with all of it. It's not like hypericum where you have to be careful with interactions.
Yeah, if I can contribute. So I'm also not an oncologist, so I did not really carefully look to synergisms or antagonisms between different classes of compounds or therapeutics and extract. But in general, what I observe in our data is that it's indeed immunomodulatory. We have mild effects. Since it has broad effects, it has like buffering capacity, restoring immune homeostasis, but it's not like a black and white effect. So it's not all our cytokines are blocked, or so in this way, I think it's a smooth immunomodulator. So I do not expect that this would have very severe adverse effects in a combination treatment.
Yeah, and you can also give it through autoimmune treatment. Yeah.
There's I think this clearly answers the question. Also, from what we know, the interaction with cytochrome C metabolizing enzymes, there is no interaction. So I think it's pretty safe. It has some immune activating principles. So maybe if you have if you're under immune suppression, you have to discuss it with your treating physician. That's normally what we recommend by company. There's a question: after how many years of using Echinacea every day can the body become oversaturated? So this is like maybe, well, let's talk about the production of resistances or the overactivity of the immune system. Maybe this question goes into this direction. I think, Wim, you have shown some good results on interferon. What is it exactly doing? Huh?
Well, yeah, you see that in early stages, it's like primes the system, that the baseline is activated. But like interferon responses during a virus infection is dynamic. It's going up, and also at some time you need to go down a little bit over the top. You need a balance between activators and brakes to keep the whole system in check. So yeah, for long-term treatment, it would be interesting to see if there's like a kind of memory of Echinacea treatment, but so far we do not see a kind of memory like you would say that a vaccine has a triggering a kind of immune memory. Also, plant bioactives in general, the pharmacodynamics, how long they are in the body, they are also sometimes metabolized. They have a biological half-life. So our body is able to metabolize some bioactives. So then I would not expect that we build up a resistance, that they are accumulating in the body. So we have a natural way of clearing our body from food, vegetables, plant compounds in kind of hormesis way. So far, I have not observed kind of resistance against Echinacea in the experiments I have been evaluating.
It reminds me on experiments we've done with the university in Gießen. We have, I remember once treated influenza viruses with oseltamivir, the Tamiflu, the gold standard for flu therapy. And we have observed the development of resistance against this antiviral after about 5 rounds of treatment, whereas with Echinacea, no such activity occurred. And we have found that this is due to the multiplicity of actives. For the virus, it's much more difficult to escape the activity of Echinacea because there are so many substances. Mm-hmm. So that maybe also adds to this question. So I don't think we can expect resistances. And also, when a product is on the market for 70 years, that also answers certain questions regarding the production of resistances, I guess. So there were more questions, also the combination with other, with other substances, whether it's herbal or chemical. Also, there was one question: how quick is the response to Echinacea administration in acute infections? So if I have upcoming symptoms, how quick does it works? I mean, I think it's not a paracetamol. It's a herbal treatment, but what can we expect?
I do not know, have not much knowledge on the pharmacodynamics of some of the bioactives if you take a tablet or chewing. So if it's getting in circulation, what is the peak concentration, or how quickly you can have a biological impact of it. So this is a little bit out of scope of my field, I think.
Yeah, just if you look at this study, for example, which we both show how quickly you have a reduction of the virus load in the nasopharynx. After 5 days, you have a 99% reduction. Then I think you have a quite quick effect. Mm-hmm. And we know that Echinacea is blocking the ECAM receptor, and this he has to do very quickly. And also the activity on interferon, which is increasing. And what I see in children, I think after 1 to 2 days, you have an effect. Yeah, but this is just my clinical experience, which I have.
Mm-hmm. That's also what we see from other studies. I think it's realistic after 1 or 2 days. When you treat with Echinacea early, then you see there is no, the symptoms will not become worse. They are really going down from the very first day of treatment. And it's also interesting when you combine it with, for instance, sage in the form of sore throat treatment, the results are very quick. So this is then within minutes to hours that you see an effect. Yeah.
Or with elderberry. I mean, the combination.
Also with elderberries.
Elderberry or sage is a very good combination. Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah. Okay, so I think we have many questions left. I will promise you we will send you frequently asked question form back with all answers to the questions. So you will receive that. Unfortunately, the time is running out. We have now a 1 hour very interesting conversation and presentation. So again, I would like to thank our two speakers today. For me, it was a very exciting evening also. Every time I listened to your presentations, I learned something, and I'm pretty sure that for all the attendees, this was the same. So you gave us really a deep insight on the mechanism, how Echinaforce works, and also what we can expect from the clinical point of view. So that leaves me to say goodbye to all of you, wish you a good night or a good day wherever you live. And also I wish you especially a cold-free winter, and now you know what to do. And thank you very much for your participation. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
From me too.